I know what you want. You want to learn something. Well, you've come to the right place. I like to consider my channel an educational channel. Something you can learn from. Something you can watch and walk away with being slightly less retarded than what you came watching in. Ever wondered how much urine it would take to fill up the Grand Canyon? Wonder no more.
One on Earth peed into the Grand Canyon. You might think it would fill up in less than a day, but the Grand Canyon can hold about 1.2 quadrillion gallons, and the average person pees about half a gallon a day. So if all 8 billion people peed at the same time, they'd only add about 4 billion gallons of pee. At that rate, it would take over 800,000 years of constant peeing to fill it up.
What happens if you poop in the pool?
You poop out a turd in the pool. You could just fish it out and add a little more chlorine to the water. But if you have diarrhea, the runny mess will spread rapidly. And it also contains germs, which can survive for days. Even in chlorinated water, you'd need a huge amount of chlorine to kill them all. So better just use the toilet instead.
I'm trying to think of the last time I shit myself. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm man enough to say it fairly recently.
What?
If you're unfamiliar what a shart is, it's where you fart and then you shit fart, and then they combine them together. So I was like, let me give Arby's a second shot. I was like, it's been years since I've ate at that diarrhea dumpster fire abortion clinic of a fast food restaurant. Let me give it another chance. Sure enough, $14 later.
Oh my God.
Eating my Angus beef piece of shit. And I was like, yeah, that's like I remember it. Disappointing. And then, then I had diarrhea and I sharted. It wasn't like nothing major, but I was just like, yeah, there's something back there and something has exited me. I'm getting off track. Don't diarrhea in the fucking pool. How a cigarette break saved her life.
The elevator jolted violently as she went for a cigarette break. And when she stepped out, the building's door was crammed with people trying to leave. Suddenly, she noticed flaming papers raining outside as people ran for cover.
I don't like where this is going. Is this going to be 9/11? I feel like this is going to be about 9/11. I'm just getting 9/11 vibes. Let's find out.
And smoke and fire streamed out of the tower across the street where a plane had hit it.
Could be another building.
Then came a second plane.
How did I know?
He slipped from the harness on the tallest free fall in the world, falling 100 feet to the ground below. You see, when he got on, the harness didn't fit him. The operator adjusted the harness to give him extra room. The ride climbed to over 400 feet before suddenly dropping at 75 miles an hour. But the extra space meant the harness wasn't secure, and the boy slipped through the gap. Tragically, he died from his injuries, all because of a simple mistake.
The mistake was being a fat fuck and then expecting to do skinny people activities. That was the mistake. The operator should have known better too. Should have been like, look, kid, you're fat. But he felt bad. Sometimes I catch myself feeling bad for fat people. Listen, for all my fat people watching this, you got to know your limitations. You can't do skinny people shit. There's like a 1 percentile of fat people who are actually athletic and can do skinny people shit. And I'm talking about as a very, very small fractile of all the fat asses out there. Because then you get like those like pictures of those fat bitches sitting on the back of like a horse in Mexico, and the fucking horse's spine is like shaped like a U about to give out. Rest in spaghetti, never forgetty.
In 1848, a large iron rod drove through the face and head of a man while he was working on a railroad. It passed behind his left eye and exited through the top of his skull, and he somehow managed to stay conscious while the rod was removed. Now, he did survive this incident, but he wasn't really the same person. You see, the rod went through his frontal lobe, and this area of the brain is responsible for decision-making and self-control. Because it was damaged, his entire personality changed. He became impulsive, erratic, and unpredictable.
Yeah, because he probably thought he was God after that. If I got a railroad spike to my fucking brain and survived and stayed conscious, I'd walk around thinking I'm the fucking chosen one. Old people are built different. Like, you know, you're like lifting weights and then some old boomer ass motherfucker's like, yeah, I used to eat those fucking weights and shit. I'm starting to believe these old motherfuckers were actually built like that. Think about it. These people were infinitely stronger and faster than us, surviving railroad spikes to their fucking cranium, smoking asbestos and drinking whiskey and moonshine by the gallons and beating as much women and minorities as they possibly can get their hands on. And meanwhile, we're all dying from like, oh, I got popcorn lung for my little vape. I have cancer. And like, we ain't shit. Let's look up this guy real quick, though, just for historically accurate sakes. Well, I'll be a son of a bitch. He really did. Kind of looks like Guts from Berserk after he got his eye gouged out. Moving on! Biohazard on a plane. This one looks interesting.
Diarrhea exploded from the woman, splattering the seats and dribbling down the aisle.
Oh, God!
She was on a flight when her stomach suddenly began hurtling, and she got up to use the bathroom, but she didn't make it. The smell hit immediately, making nearby passengers gag and retch.
You know it's bad when you got the Indian guy on the plane puking in a bag. You know that shit's rancid.
The crew's desperate attempts to clean it only spread the mess further, and it got so bad that the pilot decided to make an emergency landing.
A potential hot take: I would much rather be in the plane on 9/11 than to be in that fucking plane right there.
That's not ridiculous. That's not ridiculous to say that.
Like, I'm not joking. I'm not trying to be edgy. I would genuinely rather be in a hijacked airplane with terrorists with box cutters and get my throat slit or be slammed into a fucking building at Mach 3 and die in an explosion than to be stuck in a tightly confined space filled with diarrhea. Life really isn't that sacred nor worth living. Giving birth on a spinning table.
The table would spin the mother around as she was giving birth, and it could generate up to 8 Gs of force, the same amount a fighter pilot would feel at high speeds. As it spun, the baby would be pushed downward, and a small net at the end was supposed to catch it once it was born. Doctors would be there to help the process go smoothly, but even though the idea was patented, it was never used in hospitals for obvious reasons.
What Dr. Doofenshmirtz motherfucker came up with that? What evil scientist came up with this contraption because they need to be stopped? What if we just slingshot that little motherfucker out the pussy? Yeah, that'll work. Sometimes God gives his brilliance to all the wrong people. The ghost that haunts public toilets.
Just as you're about to wipe, a man in a red cape asks, red paper or blue paper? Legend says that if you choose red, you'll be slashed to death, and your clothes will be soaked in blood. But if you choose blue, you'll be strangled until your face changes color. Now you might think you can trick him by choosing yellow, but that just means he'll dunk your head in the toilet, holding you there until you drown.
For the love of God! Please! Actually, I didn't even think of that being an option at all. My first thought, might be an outlier here, is what the fuck is there a red cloaked cultsman doing in my fucking stall? You know, that's my first thought of things. Well, I'm about to choose the yellow toilet paper. You don't want to know what happens when you ask for the brown toilet paper. Trust me. He makes you eat poo. Let that have been me. Mid shit, I'm gonna reach into my ass crack and in the toilet and grab as much human fecal matter as possible, like I'm a chimpanzee at the Audubon Zoo, and I'm gonna hammer him to death with my feces. He might live. He might even survive. There's a strong chance he's gonna win, because I'm in a seated position taking a shit. He's standing up with a knife and stuff. He ain't walking away unscathed. I guarantee you that's gonna be the last motherfucker he ambushes in a toilet. It's going to be an all-around shitty situation for all parties involved. I ain't fucking Josin. Wow! You're not about to just murder me and walk away. No, you're going to eat some shit.
Down to kiss the mummified hand of Mary Magdalene, but instead of kissing it, he bit into it. The monks tried to pull him off, but he kept chewing on the bone. And finally, 2 small pieces came loose. The monks were angry, but he managed to keep hold of the pieces. He brought them back to his own church as a religious tourist attraction.
You better thank the Lord. And I mean personally thank him that he's such a forgiving fellow. Because you're going to have a tough time explaining that shit to him if you get up there. you're going to skip past God. Jesus is going to take, like, hey, Dad, step out for a second. I want to talk to this one-on-one. Imagine explaining to your Lord and Savior, like, why you bit off his mother's dead fingers. Call me crazy. Might be going to hell. If there is one, you're going there.
Patients would crawl inside the dead whale's body, leaving just their heads sticking out. They'd stay there for up to 30 hours, lying in the decomposing blubber. During this time, they'd breathe in the gas from the rotting carcass, believing it would cure their arthritis. And this all started because a drunk man once fell into a beached whale and claimed it cured his pain. Soon, whale hotels started appearing, offering this service to patients. But there's nothing to prove it ever actually worked.
Is this nigga serious?
I have very many questions. This all started because one drunk dude, drunk off his ass, stumbled into a dead fucking whale. I feel like it was just one of those drunken mistakes where you do some dumb shit when you're drunk, and then people are like, why the fuck were you inside that dead whale half naked covered in cum? You're like, and he had to scramble for an idea to make himself look less stupid and embarrassed. So he's like, actually, it helped with my arthritis. And then people actually bought it. They're like, wait a minute, really? He's like, oh yeah, I'm feeling good, as his arthritis crackled even louder. I feel like this was just an old-timey fetish. But then again, maybe sitting inside of a decomposing dead whale for 30 hours, it might work.
The whale's mouth was attached to a hinge, allowing it to open like a giant door, and its skin had been nailed to a wooden frame to preserve its shape. Inside, they attached benches and a long table, complete with a tablecloth and candles. And rich people would hold private dinner parties inside the 50-foot whale. It was even used to host an official speech from the mayor, but eventually, a couple was found using the whale inappropriately, and it was quickly closed to the public.
Always a bad apple to spoil the bunch, huh? Can't have whale parties anymore because they want to turn a humpback into a sperm whale. Gosh, y'all know I got them fucking bars on deck. I wouldn't mind getting drunk at a whale party. After doing my fucking dead whale detox, and then you get invited to like a nice whale party. I think that'd be pretty fire.
She spilled her husband's ashes on her hand and decided to lick them off. And even though they tasted like rotten eggs, she felt closer to her husband while eating them. Soon, she was carrying the ashes everywhere and snacking on them several times a day. And she ended up eating a pound of the remains. But corpses are treated with 8 different chemicals before they're cremated. And if eaten, they can cause hallucinations and even death.
You know what? Actually, that is gross, but I need a woman like that. I need a bitch who's gonna eat my ashes after I die. That's a ride or die bitch. The fact that he's dead and she's still licking him up. What? My bitch still slurp me up, even if I'm in an urn. Would you go on a sewer tour? Probably not.
A giant barge floated down the river of poop underneath Paris. Ladies in full Victorian dress would travel over the sewage, while the men walked alongside them. Even some members of the royal family attended. The tunnels were specially lit with lamps and spotlights. Despite the poop-covered walls and the giant rats, guests loved seeing the cities underground. And to this day, you can still take a sewer tour in Paris.
Of course it's in Paris. Of course this stinky ass activities in Paris. Oui, oui. The city of romance. You want to go on a nice shit tour?
Nope.
You want to go dilly-dally in the sewer? Dip your little fucking croissant in some raw sewage? Add a little flavor? Disgusting. I'll tell you right now, French people are never going to beat the stinky allegations.
The performer jumped into the crowd, landing on top of a fan's neck and crushing her spinal cord. Now, he was expecting the crowd to catch him so they could lift him up and pass him around the audience. But she fell to the ground paralyzed, unable to move any of her limbs. Her family rushed to the hospital where doctors immediately began surgery. And after days of intensive care, she was able to move her arms and legs again.
Well, she better count her lucky stars I wasn't a Dave Blunt's concert, or else she wouldn't be with us to this day. Imagine you get crippled at some like really lame ass concert, like you got crippled at a Maroon 5 concert because fucking Adam Levine wanted to stage dive. Ed Sheeran wanted to fucking hop up off the top rope like he was Jeff Hardy or some shit.
If you shut a giant book on your head, you might think it would be heavy enough to crack open your skull. But the human head is made of dense bone, and it can actually withstand over 500 pounds of pressure. Now, a frog's bones are much weaker and could definitely be smashed by a regular book, but it would take an 8-foot tall book closing on your head to crush your skull completely.
Knowledge. 500 pounds. We got a pretty tough little helmet up here, don't we? Why am I like this?
The room had a bed chained to the wall, a concrete floor, and bizarre decorations, including skulls and paintings of conjoined twins. Now, this wasn't a dungeon, but a room in a luxury hotel. And compared to the other suites, it was shockingly small. The room had a brick wall with what seemed to be a one-way mirror. And when the guest asked about it, the hotel staff said the room wasn't supposed to be booked out. Later, they changed their story and said it was decorated like a jail on purpose. But the truth behind room 322 is still a mystery.
I could probably tell you the origin of it. I'm no detective or anything. Maybe the guy who originally owned the hotel was a fucking creep and liked to jerk off through a one-way mirror and watch families and people do weird stuff in their hotels while he absolutely cranked his fucking hog. That might be the origin of that.
Correct!
How many 10-year-olds can you fight? In my current shape right now, because I'm a little out of shape. I'm not going to lie to you, but I'm not that fucking out of shape. Pussy ass bitch. Don't try me. I want to say I could kill or incapacitate 14 10-year-olds right now at this moment. Like, at the least. I'm lowballing it. Especially kids these days. These fat ass little iPad kids. Actually, let me double that number to 28. Yeah, 28 iPad kids. I'm fucking running their shit. Now, it's like once we hit the 30s, I'm going to start struggling.
If a 10-year-old attacked you, you'd easily be able to fight them off. But if you add more kids, like 10 at once, things start to get tricky. The average 10-year-old weighs about 70 pounds. But if you're really strong, you might be able to fight them off if you used all your strength. Now, if 25 kids worked together, they'd have the weight and energy of a small football team, and their combined efforts would easily bring down any adult.
Okay, well, that kind of changes things, doesn't it? I can handle 10 10-year-olds. 25, might be right. I mean, 25 coordinated, and let's just give them the benefit of the doubt here. Let's say it's like some real, ADHD kids that love playing outside, too. They're more active. 25 athletic 10-year-olds coming to kill me. I would say I could get maybe a good 3 or 4 if they're that coordinated. If it's a football team of them, my chances aren't looking too high.
When placed on the head, a spiked metal bit was inserted into the mouth, preventing speech and causing immense discomfort. It encased the victim's face with an iron framework and was often secured with a padlock, ensuring it could not be removed by the wearer. This brutal punishment device was used in the past to silence and humiliate people, particularly women accused of gossiping or nagging. Victims were paraded through the streets, publicly shamed and ridiculed.
Bring it back. Bring it back. We need it. I'm not trying to be a misogynist or anything. I'm kidding. Probably not. Speaking of women, trapped by her own poop.
She threw her poop out the window when the toilet wouldn't flush. But instead of leading outside, it opened to a small air gap and her poop got stuck there. She was on a first date and had to call him in to help. She climbed in head first to get her poop and passed it back to him. But when she tried to get out, she realized she was stuck. Her date had no choice but to call authorities, who smashed the window to free her. But they did end up going on a second date.
Talk about a meet cute. What is this, a fucking rom-com or something? That's love. That's love right there. I wish more women would realize that dudes don't really care that much about their bowels and stuff. Get the fuck over yourself. Don't be doing it too much now. Don't be fucking farting and shitting and sharting and queefing all over the place now. Don't be going overboard nuts to butts. We're all human. I'm a grown up. I had a girl fart on me one time on accident. Did I think less of her? A little bit. Nothing major. I still hit. I did it. I'll say it. I'm man enough. I got a learning disability, I'll say it.
What?
Alright, let's finish this off strong with a tale of survival.
He molded his own feces into a chisel and waited for it to freeze in the frigid temperatures. He was trapped under his sled in the middle of a blizzard and needed to escape. As the snow piled up, he realized he couldn't break through it with his bare hands. His body heat was melting the snow, increasing his risk of hypothermia, and he was running out of time. Once hardened, he used the makeshift tool to carve his way out of the icy tomb, which ended up saving his life.
I guess I can't really talk shit, no pun intended, of what this man did to survive because I've never been in that situation. I like to think I'd just die. I don't think I have a lust for life that much that would require me to dig poop out my ass and fasten it into a chisel. Life really isn't worth it to be doing all that. Anyways, that was it. I love you.